Welcome to GameDev Camp. This is probably one of the biggest events that I know in Portugal about gathering so many developers and people interested in gaming in general and indie games. So my talk is about what I've been doing. I work during the day on a regular job, and during the night I work in games. It's my hobby. I'm working on them independently from my own pocket. So I'm going to talk about the latest game I've made, Quest of Dungeons, and the things that kept me going. Because it's hard when you get home, you're tired from your work, and you want to work on the game, but you don't have enough time, and you want to hang out with your friends. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my own experience on that. So this is going to be like a kind of weird talk because I've never done something. I usually talk about, I'm a programmer. I usually talk about code or the art or how I built the game. So I'm going to talk a bit more of my own personal experience, like what was happening with me, like a bit different. So my name is David Amador. I've started working in games in 2006 professionally on a game company, and then in 2009 I started working independently. I went to a web development job, and I work in games during the night. So why do this? A lot of people ask why risk everything and work on a game, so it's really about loving something, that you love something, you want to do it, and you can easily fail at something that you don't like. You have a job and you don't like it that much, and you can fail at it. You can be fired, you can be not good, so why not risk on something that you actually like? You can fail, but you can also succeed. This is some of the games that I've made. Probably the most well-known, that people know. Those two from the left, Visati and Anadea, they were from a three-person team. We were one designer, one programmer, someone doing the music. These two from the right are made I made like this one. You can actually notice, I did the art. It's a sketch on a notebook. I did all that. And this is the latest one, Quest of Dungeons. So these are just a couple of prototypes. This is just to show that some people have an idea for a game, and it's immediately well known, and it's a great idea, and he has that sense of making a great game. Some people start making better games as they progress. You make a couple of prototypes, they're not good, then you make another one, and you keep getting better. This is just to show that if I have something today that's kind of good, it's because I've done a lot of bad things. There's a lot of things here that never never reached anything. So most people don't have money. This is the reality. Most people don't have money to work on their game. They want to work on games. They have an idea, but they don't have the money to do that during the full time. They need money to keep food on the table, so they have to get a job and work on stuff on the weekends, during the night. So not everyone can get funding, or some people don't even want to, because that implies getting a lot of restrictions. Like if you have a publisher, you need to sell a certain number of copies. Some people just want to learn, have fun, and see where they can get with that. So a lot of people work during the night. I work during the night too on games and on weekends. I've done some full-time development, I would work on a game and I would get some money, then I would work on the next one half the time the first half of the game full-time. I had some money, then I went to get another job just to fund the rest of the game, to get money for the rest of it. I've been doing this for approximately 5 years. It's not easy to do this sometimes, because you have to you have to sacrifice a bit something. If you hang out with your friends during all the nights, you can't do that if you want to work on a game. You have to spend less time with them, or you have to balance. Something has to be, something has to go out a bit. So it's kind of, you have to see what you need to keep on your day-to-day, like going out with friends or traveling. You need to keep the things that you love. You need to keep doing them, but in less quantity, because you have to spend some time working on a game. Because you can't drag it too much time. So this is something people sometimes ask me, like, should I get a job in, if you're a programmer, should I get a job programming during the day, because I'm going to spend like 10 hours or something programming, then I get home, I have to code my own game, it's stressful for my mind, I'm working on something, then I have to switch my mindset to another thing. Like, this is something you have to try. I've done both things, like working on, I don't know, a shoe store. I didn't work on a shoe store, but a restaurant, for example. A restaurant has that thing where you get home physically tired, but your mind is like, isn't tired at all. Like you haven't spent the day thinking on algorithms or something like that. But it usually has a less income, so you can't. It's harder to save money for the future, because what you want is keep saving some money each month for a rainy day. Like something happens, or if you decide to work on a game, like your game is almost done and you think, no, this is gonna, I think I'm gonna sell well, I'm gonna risk the latest 3 months full time. You have to have some money on the side for a rainy day. Something may go wrong. Also, this is something actually happened to me. Like when I started, I had no idea what, like you put a game, how many people will see it, how many people will buy it. When I started, I had no idea. Like you see all these people making money on the internet. You think like, oh, I'm gonna put a game. Maybe even if I don't make a lot of money, maybe I'll make enough to keep me going each month. It happens to some people. It doesn't happen to many of, like 95%, it probably doesn't happen. So you have to keep in mind, like when you get a job, a day job, to keep your indie stuff going on, don't go to a job that you don't like at least some bit, because you might need to keep it going for a long time. Don't think like, oh, I'm gonna stay just 6 months, I'll finish the game, I'll get some money, then I don't have to work anymore. It may not happen. So, Quest of Dungeons. I started working on Quest of Dungeons after working on it. It was almost 2 years, almost 2 years. It was never finished. Like we did the classic mistake of too ambitious. The game started growing exponentially. We 3 persons working on it, and as soon as we had the initial prototype, everyone had tons of ideas, and we started putting them all, and the game started dragging and dragging and dragging, and eventually some people didn't like what was going on, and some ideas weren't going that great, and 2 years and the game was never finished. So when that happened, the other persons had went to do something else, and I decided to work on a smaller game, still in the roguelike genre, because the other one we were working was also a roguelike, but it was a more complex, like with a lot of features. Like it was really something big. Then when that failed, I still wanted to make a roguelike, but I went to the basics, like, oh no, I know what wasn't working on that one, and I know exactly what was frustrating me when I was playing the game, when you sit down and play your own game, and no, I don't like this, I'm gonna do this differently this time. So I decided to work on a smaller scale, alone, on that game, and I started last year on July. I reused approximately 30% of the code, because it was a roguelike as well, and I started from there. Like all the features were gone, everything, every idea from that other game was gone, and I started fresh, but with a bit of the code. So I made the game in C++ and OpenGL for all platforms. It's native, so it runs well on everything. So by September, I had a pretty much rough idea of what I wanted for the game because it wasn't a very complex game. So I talked about this earlier a bit. You can get a part-time job, like you work 4 hours and you can work during the rest of the day on your own game. Mostly I've been doing like the traditional 8 hours, so you spend like approximately 10 hours, like with lunch and going from your work to house. And then you have just a few hours of your day to work on the game, to rest, to have fun, do the kinds of things you usually do. So it's important to keep a good schedule on the game, like keep the game going as much as you can, but never like leaving stuff like I don't know, never seeing your friends for months because you're working on a game all the time. You get home, you work on the game. You are always working. You have to like keep a good schedule in balancing your own needs with the game, because if you keep dragging the game, eventually if you spend like 2 weeks without working because you have other things to do, when you get back you're not just, some things are not just right anymore, you feel like it's not working, then you have another idea, and things start to drag and you keep switching projects. Like you have to keep a good, even if it's every day looking, just opening, I don't know, Photoshop if you're designing, or the Visual Studio, looking at stuff and trying to maintain, like if you work 5 days a week, try to look at it 5 days a week at least, to keep things going. This is probably stuff that everyone knows, but I'm just putting it here because it's a problem I also have. Sometimes in your short span of time you have to work on your own game, you sometimes get distracted with a lot of things. Like you get home and the first thing, let me see what's on Facebook, and 2 hours flew by. Or you're working, you have your Visual Studio or something else open and a pop-up shows up. Oh, this is interesting, let me click this. And it's that day is, so you have to keep a good environment, a good work environment. Don't get too distracted. Because but this is real for even your day job. Like if you have a lot of things popping up, you can't get a good, like if you get 2 hours without distractions, it's already very good. It's not easy to keep 2 hours focused working or coding or making something. It's 2 hours is already very good. Also, I had a particular problem with long build times that I solved spending a bit of money in a SSD drive. Because the project was already getting too big, and I was trying a feature. I changed a bit of code. I would press build, and it took like 20 seconds. I get distracted. Like let me see what's on YouTube, and you get distracted by that. So when I switch to an SSD drive, like build times are like 2 seconds. I don't get distracted. I'm always in the flow. So I try a new feature. It doesn't work. I'll build again. Oh, it's probably something else. I'll do it. It's continuous. It doesn't have any interruptions. You have to keep that. And really, all the internet in general, it's distracting. Also, keep switching projects. This happens. This happens to me. Like there are game jams. I don't know if anyone here. I know some people. That I know work on game jams, like 40 hours, you have to build a game. This is very good for ideas, this is excellent. The problem is that if you're working on, like, I don't know, the second half of the game, and you make a prototype in a weekend, and it's really great, and people start, oh, I really like this, you should do that other idea, I don't know if I want to do that. So you really need to, if you want to finish that game, don't start making like other games, like taking 3 months to build another game that you're gonna stop because you'll get another idea. Like if you're building your first game, try to finish it, even if it's not good. Just set goals, finish those goals, go to another game. Don't keep switching projects because you'll get frustrated that you don't have a finished game. You don't get to the point of finishing it and analyzing it like, oh, this is the good parts, this is the bad parts. So switching ideas is not keeping ideas, switching ideas. That's what I mean. It's not that great. When I worked on a game company in 2007, they had this problem. Like every 2 weeks, we started working on a prototype, and every 2 weeks, the management had a new idea. So eventually, people wouldn't be working on those ideas. Like they said, "Oh, let's work on this idea." They would give tasks. Nobody was working on it because they knew that in 2 weeks we'll have a new idea. So this is not something to keep. This is not motivation. It's important when you're making your own projects, like learning from them. Do a short. If you have an idea, do a prototype. Do a short project. It's really like. It's not good to fail. Like from those games I showed you, even the first ones that are more well known, many of them have major flaws, and so it's important to look at them and understanding like what failed here, or what have I done wrong, because it's the way that you keep improving. Some people have a natural thing to know this feels good, this works this way, this works better this way, but many people need to like do it, experience, and okay, I know what this fails. Like I'm one of those persons. Sometimes I don't have that many natural intuition like this works. I usually try it and I test it, and this isn't that great. This doesn't feel good. So I've talked about this. Also, you have to think. Some people, when I'm talking to other developers, oh, my game, this sucks, this isn't that great. And you have to think of it like it's another level. Like, you have to keep pushing yourself to improve. Don't let a failure, because it's really hard when you put a game on the internet and people start, this sucks, this isn't that good, and you can get a bit depressed. Like, you have to think like, you need to keep improving, you need to keep working, you need to keep, whatever drew you into making games, you have to keep going to that and keep it going. Okay, so the game, for those who don't know, it's a RPG. At its core, it has 4 features that is, it's procedural, like every time you start, everything is different. The dungeon has a different layout, the enemies are in different place. It has permadeath, which is one of the most hated features in the game. Looting, like you need to collect the treasures and items and potions and upgrading and keep getting better weapons, and the traditional RPG HP, mana, all that stuff. So this is just for those who haven't seen this. When I started working on the game, I wanted to do something light with a bit of humor. So this is pretty much what I had in mind for the game. Like, sometimes some things don't make that much sense. Like this thing, like this. Like why should he go alone? This came to me like when I was developing the game. It had 4 characters, and I was why don't I put all 4 of them like on the dungeon, like because I was dying a lot, and why don't I put all 4? I would have had better chance. So I came up with this idea, well, where they are dumb, and 3 of them pushes the other one to go alone. So this was the basic premise of the game. Like it's a roguelike, but without the traditional. It has those 4 components which are present in all roguelikes, but the rest of it, I was just going with the flow and keeping it light and a bit of nonsense, because it's easier to make it that way. Like I'm always messing around with the player or joking with them. Like when they die, they have there's a number of sentences they have. Like the characters are always messing with you. Some things are purposely wrong. Like the other day, a player was complaining about I equipped the sword and this stat doesn't correspond. And I made some stuff wrong on, like, the internal mechanics all work as intended, but sometimes the labels or the other stuff is wrongly misplaced to keep a bit of nonsense. Because sometimes when you're playing a game and you feel like this doesn't make that much sense, so I just grab some stuff that are traditional and tweak them around a bit. The game has each time you start, it's different. It has the main game has 7 floors. Each time you start, it generates a different layout for everything. This right here is the starting point. You start on that one. You start on a different point, and this is all the first floor. So you get a lot of different levels each time you start. Even the positions, like the stairs are in different place. Everything had to feel coherent because you are playing and you don't want, like, I don't know, if the random generator didn't connect this one, like this room would be non-connected and the player couldn't reach there. Like, they can forgive, like, if you go in a room and have a lot of enemies because the dungeon decided to put, like, a lot of enemies on one room. They don't feel as if that's cheating. But if a room is disconnected or something feels broken, yeah, that's not really something that you want. So this is just for showing. This is the initial room. The only things that are always permanent are, like, by the way, has anyone played the game? How many of you pressed the skull sign? Probably all of them. Like, you have that carpet and that sign that is always present on your starting room. Like, for the play, everything else is different, but when a player starts, that's the first thing they see, and they recognize it as the starting point. If you go, this is the same room, but with a different tile set. Even the decoration is random. It's never on the same place. The tiles also switch according to some rules. Like this only shows less times. This one here's a more common pattern, shows more times. This is always the first room, but with a different layout. So this creates a different experience each time the player starts. So this is another one, the same room. This is the carpet and the sign. And everything else is different. This one here doesn't even have anything else. This shows, like, coins there, pretty much. So when I started making the game, it was initially just a tablet game because I wasn't creating that much features. Like, I don't know if you. Usually on RPGs you have a lot of menus, like for equipping, for evolving your character, and I was making it simple. And at start it felt like this is a tablet game because you have a good area for playing, and I started making it just as a tablet game for playing on the go. But eventually, like, I was sending it to some testers, and most people, I want to try this on a computer with a keyboard. Or even a mouse, because you can play the full game with a mouse. So I eventually decided to bring it to as much platforms as I could. The only main difference across all platforms is that on smaller screens, like iPhones and Androids, you have a different UI for the menus, are a compact mode. Everything else from tablets to PC has a bigger UI experience. You even have a map here. On the other one, if you want to see the map, you have to press a map button. So everything else is the same, just that small difference from the smaller screens to the bigger ones. So this was the start. The game was going well, and I had everything that I wanted more or less in place, but the game felt a little empty for me. Like, I knew the game very well. This is usually a problem. You know the game too well, and you start feeling that it doesn't have enough stuff. And you only have that sensation if it's working or not when you give it to someone else and you see them play, and how hard it is for them to reach something or understand something. Because usually the things that you think are easier to understand are usually the hardest ones, and usually the things that you think people won't pay attention is the first thing they'll notice. So I was having that problem. The game felt too slow. Like you were playing in the game, you get bored quickly. You would progress in the dungeon. I'll show you a video of the earlier build in a few slides for you to get an idea of what I'm talking about. But I wasn't feeling that good about the game. Also, if you're working during the day and you have to work during the night, that frustration keeps piling up with you not liking where you're going with the game. So this is something I talked already a bit earlier. You have to keep focusing on the little things that are getting done, because usually the problem is that you don't have much time, and sometimes some components that could take like, I don't know, a week in full time can take months in part time. And you don't get things, you don't see things flowing or going. You can be coding for days and days and for making a small dust on the feet from your character, and that doesn't feel like progress, because you have that break during the day and you go into your game, working your game during the night and things, and then you can't really remember where you were last night. It's a bit tricky, and you have to keep finding little things inside the game to what drew you in the first place to make it. This is also a problem. Like, if you're not happy every time you want to add something or fix something, everything feels like a huge chore. You probably know this from Pokemon, where you need to find something else to cut the tree, and everything is gigantic. For a simple thing, you have to do gigantic other things. This is also something when I talk to some, because I know a lot of other developers that are either in the same situation or are working on full time, and usually the thing is like, what the hell am I doing with my life? Like, you see everyone else doing stuff with their lives, and you're working on a game all the time, and the game is won't be finished for like a year or so, and you're not it's not easy. It's not easy because we're not really made to be in front of a computer all the time. I spend a lot of time in front of the computer, but sometimes when you're not getting the best part of the game is for me is when you get it done and people are playing and enjoying it. But until you get there, it's a really hardship. It's really hard to get to surpass all those problems. Because if I decide to work 2 hours or 3 hours after work each day, and my friends ask me, you want to go out to dinner tonight? Oh, I can't, I'm working on my game. Why not, dude, you're always working. So this kind of stuff, psychologically, it's a big no. Like, your brain is thinking, why am I doing this? I'm not making any money yet. I already have my day job. So this is actually a bit of anyone saw what's it called, that indie game, the movie? So that, yeah, a lot of people saw it. That's all true. Like, you get that problem. You're seeing. So I remember on one part, one of the developers was talking like, I don't even have money to take my girlfriend out for a dinner. Like, she has to pay half of it because I'm spending money on something else. And you're thinking, should I be doing this? So this is a problem. How can you surpass these things? You have to find, this is a couple of pictures, you have to find things in your life that you like to do, and you have to sometimes just don't work on a game, I don't know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Just, if you're feeling that much frustrated, go on a trip or hang out with your friends. I don't know, this is from the aquarium here in Lisbon. I spent like 2 weeks going there. I would pay not every day because the fee is a bit pricey, but a couple of days I would go there with my laptop, and I spent on the bottom floor. I would sit there and code because I was watching the fish, and it was a different environment for working. Like, this feels stupid, but it felt everything made sense. Like I was working, I was coding something, I was watching all the fishes going on the aquarium, and I didn't have internet, so that helps. So you have to find something that you like to do. Some people like to travel, some people like to go dance in the clubs, hang out with friends, like go hiking. Do something different. Like don't even. Sometimes this is hard because you're very in the development of the game. I have the problem where sometimes I'm working at my day job and I'm thinking of things from the game. Like, oh, how am I gonna solve that? If you decide to do something like that, don't try to think on anything because you'll break the purpose. The purpose is get out of everything. When you get back, you will have a different perspective of things that aren't working. You'll definitely have solutions from some problems you've been having for a long time because you're not trying. So this is what I just told. Sometimes when you're not thinking on the solutions, they come to you naturally. Like I don't know, you're thinking of something. How do I solve this bug or something? You go take a shower or run a bit, and the solution comes naturally to you. It isn't something that happens to you like oh, I'm going to go out and I'll have the idea. This doesn't work all the time. But in many things where you've been working too much time in a row, this happens. So this is the video I was talking. If you notice here, okay. So this is what I was talking. If you notice, like I move the character and then the other ones move, because this is a turn-based game. I move one, then the other one, the other one in line moves, then the other one, then the other one. So this is this was the initial, this was the initial prototype. Like, I'm gonna play it back again. If you notice, like, your character moves, then it's the other one. Like, if you have like 5 or 6 enemies in the screen, that's a real nightmare. It's very boring. So I had that problem. This was one of the problems I was talking about. And I was playing the game, and I was so focused on that I wasn't really noticing. And when some people started telling, "Oh, this is cool, but this is a bit boring or slow," and I decided to switch. This came to me when I was on one of those breaks, like not really thinking about the game, and I decided to like this. If you see this now, it's very easy to understand. Like you should move the characters all at once, but sometimes you're so close to your project, you made it that you made it that way, you thought of it that way, and sometimes it's hard to see outside of the box. And really, if you send the build to someone else, like a friend, or send it to the worst persons that you can think that will really crush your game, like this sucks, and they'll tell you things that you really understand, like, yeah, this really doesn't work. So this was one of those things. It's just an example, and the game got a lot better because the game doesn't even feel like turn-based. You're playing, you're going. If you play with the keyboard, you're going like across the rooms very quickly, and you don't even notice. It's you'll die and you'll start again, and it's much better. So I was working on. So this is usually a problem. Like you have your game, the game is actually cool, but distributing to everyone, like reaching a wide audience, it's hard. It's probably one of the biggest problems. You see a lot of indie games, like they're really cool. I see indie games all the time. Like this is really great. Why isn't this selling, or why isn't this on Steam? Like it's really hard to get to the right people. So while I was working the game, I was thinking, where am I going to distribute the game? So I was working. The game was made for iOS, so that's you don't need. Usually they accept everything. If it's not really a problem. The next two I sent to GOG. I don't know if you guys know it, but they rejected the game. They felt it wasn't going to sell that well. It was too. For a very restricted audience, and they didn't feel. They told the traditional, I like the game, but it really doesn't fit our store. That's usually the Humble Store accepted, which was a big surprise for me. They have the indie bundle, now they have the store. The Zura accepted as well. And about Steam, the other games that I show you on the beginning, I tried to send to Steam all of them. Like all of them got rejected. So I wasn't really trying with this one because this was the game I didn't felt it would reach as much audience because some of the other games had the really cool art style. Like we tried to reach different audiences with more stylized art. And that was the thing I felt would be separating our game from the other games. But with this one, and you have Greenlight now, and I have the other two games there for almost 500 days in there. And none of them reaches more than 20% of the, because you have to reach, it's by public vote, and you have to reach the top 100 of games to even be considered. And my other two games didn't even had 20%, and they were there for like 500 days, both of them. So I didn't even try Steam because you have to pay a fee to get in on Greenlight, and I didn't made for at this time. I didn't try it. Eventually, I made a trailer. I made it during Christmas, and I released it on January. It's not that story trailer I showed you. It's a different one showing gameplay. And I made a tweet and shared it on Facebook and some other places, and people seem to really like the trailer. And I started seeing, like in the first day, I started seeing in some forums people talking about, oh, this game seems cool. And someone asked, like, why aren't you, is this on Greenlight? So I decided to, okay, I'm going to pay I think it's 100 euros or something. I paid the fee, and I decided to release it. So for my big surprise, the game started being upvoted really exponentially. I don't even have many idea of how it happened because I can't track like where was the sources coming. I assume it was people watching on Greenlight. I know that Touch Arcade had a really big thread talking about the game. So the game, like it started exploding a bit, the trailer itself, because nobody has played, I didn't have any gameplay videos like that was like a combination of small pieces of gameplay in a certain order that I felt like this part here works, this part here works. Nobody had like an entire flow of gameplay. So it was a big surprise for me. So yeah, the game was greenlighted in 6 days. So this is usually the games would take like this is the game that was in first place at the time. So that was mine getting votes. So this was obviously very good for me because I was trying for a very long time to get on Steam. Everyone has that thing, like Steam is the big thing. And even just the fact of getting accepted was a big thing for me. This was back in January, and when I released that trailer, I made the mistake of announcing a release date, and things start falling apart from there. I said February the game will be released. I think that was the plan, and as soon as the game was accepted on Steam, nobody cared about the other releases like iOS and anything else. People just would come to me like, when's the Steam version getting released? And I knew that I still had to incorporate the SDK. You have to build a game to work on Steam with the Steam overlay and the achievements and all that. That takes time. And I had no idea. I still had to investigate and see how that works. So my initial thought was, oh, I'll release the game on the already scheduled day, and then I'll get to the Steam release a bit later. But people were asking so much about the Steam, and I thought I can do it. I thought I can do it all in time. So I started working crazy hours. And I'm just talking about this to tell you that sometimes it's better to get some perspective. I was working on this alone, and the problem was that I felt like if I don't release it now, because people are talking about the game now, and if I don't get it out now, if I release it like, I don't know, 6 months, I think all the hype will be gone, because I wasn't even understanding how the hype began. I was afraid that everything would be gone in like 4 or 5 months, because even more because I don't have any marketing money to keep everything going. So I thought I have to release it now while people are really asking about it. So I started working too many hours, like crazy hours, and that led to a delay because I eventually ended up in the hospital. So this next slide is to tell you that the most important thing is really your own health. Like don't start working until 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., going to work at 9 a.m. That works when you're young and you're in school. It doesn't really work good when you're working on a day job. So it's really important to keep your mind and your body healthy. If you're not too healthy, or when sometimes you have a cold, you can't produce as well. If you have a permanent condition in your mind where you can't really focus, that will ruin your work during the day, your work during the night. So you have to keep a good balance. Like, I shouldn't have done that attempt to release the game for all platforms in February. It was really nonsense for me, but at the time it felt like I can do it. I didn't manage to do it. So eventually the game only got delayed, I think, 1 month, which really isn't that big of a deal, but at the time I couldn't really understand that I could take a bit more time. Also, the problem was that I remember, I don't know who it was, but I remember a magazine was telling me, like, if you send me a final build of the game until next week, I can put you in a feature page. And I was thinking, yeah, that's really big for me, because I've never been on a physical magazine. But the problem was that I was trying to crunch everything and trying to get everything to work, and I couldn't make it. I couldn't make it all, because also you have. Since I was working alone, I was taking care of the marketing part, like getting email. Like you get on the release day, you get a lot of emails, like people, this doesn't work on my computer, this sucks. Like I have like people don't really read the system requirements for the game, and I know that because I said on the system requirements that I only supported OpenGL 2 and upper, and people with the OpenGL 1 cards were buying the game, because I can see you can track that on Steam, and so people don't really read that, and then you start getting tons of emails. Like on the release day, I got like, I don't know, 300 emails or so from people. Like most of them, like 90% of those emails were, the problem was drivers not installed, but you have to answer all of them, and I was answering all of them, and I was making hot fixes on the game, because I remember one day I was doing this like at 3 a.m. or so. So I would patch a feature, and I would start. You have to deploy the game. I made the game for Mac. Initially, it was Mac and Windows, and I made the mistake. Like one of the folders on Mac was empty, and I deployed the game. The Windows was working fine. I went to sleep. So the other day I was on work, and I was going to work, and I was checking my phone. Let me see. Someone said the game doesn't work anymore. Like, oh, okay. So don't take any rush decisions or things very late. Sometimes things don't go that well. So right now, the game eventually got released on March 25, just for Windows and Mac and iOS. I made the Linux port in May. So right now, I'm mainly working on ports for other platforms. Android is probably the closest one to getting done. I'm just working on getting it running on older devices. And I'm working on a bigger update. This is some this feels like a bit bragging, but for me it's very cool. Some people really like the game. Like that guy played almost more than 100 hours. For me, that's really cool. So the game was really well received overall, but it had some really big problems that were my fault. Like, since I made the game for tablets at first, when I made it for PCs and Macs, I made the game. The game is fully compatible with your mouse, like you can play the whole game with your mouse. But I only had like movement with the character with the keyboard and nothing else, and that's really not cool because I got initially like the bad reviews. If you go on the Steam page and you filter for bad reviews, most of them are that the initial ones, most of them were like, the game doesn't work with the keyboard. I can't control the game with the keyboard. So it was really my fault. I didn't, you need to think of the platform and think, what do these people of this platform usually like? And this type of game, people like to play it with their, they're on their chair and they're controlling with the game just with the keyboard, not really moving the mouse that much. It had the other problems that people complained, but I felt like the one from dying. When you die, the game restarts. You can save the game at any time if you don't die, but when you die, the game restarts. And a lot of people thought that was a bug. Really, like even yesterday, I was seeing the latest review on Steam. The game is cool, but the game doesn't save at all. Like, I died and the game restarted. Yeah, that's intended. That's on the description. If you read the description, that's on the description. But also another thing, I don't have any tutorials on the game, apart from something that pops up like here, just because nobody, since you have a field of vision, in many situations you have that part all black, and people don't really pay attention to this. Like, they get distracted because the focus is on this area. Like this part, I initially made this because for the UI to not to be distracting to the gameplay, but this isn't really that good because a lot of people wasn't really noticing this. They would just, oh, I have that there, I have the game here. A couple minutes later, they would find that, but they wouldn't find this. So I made like this small pop-up. It's the only tutorial I have, just to bring attention to that, because I was giving the game to my friends. I'll play it. They were playing it, and they weren't really paying attention to that. So I made just a small pop-up, and you don't have any more tutorials. But a lot of people complained about that too. But it's really something that you have to think, like, do I want to make a game like people will find out things for themselves, or I want to explain everything? It's really a decision up to you. It's not really something that's wrong. It may feel wrong for the player, but it's something that you have to decide. In my case, I decided not to handhold the player all along the line. So this is just to end. This is a visual representation of the Git repo, where this is like code and the art, like a visual representation from July to February. Those are just some facts I just placed in. Not really. Yeah. So. Okay. So this. This is the end of the presentation. If anyone has any questions that you want to ask, even if something isn't, or something you want to see more discussed, or something that you want to know differently from what I talked about. Thank you. For me, like...
what comes next as far as projects go?
Oh, I have a couple of ideas that I'm just throwing around in my or in the notebook. I'm throwing around some ideas. Like I'm trying to find what I have a couple of ideas, but I'm trying to find what I want to work, where I feel like, yeah, I'll get enough motivation to work on this for how long the project takes. I don't have any definitive idea of what it is, but I have a couple of ideas that I'm throwing around. Not anything. It's really early.
You're still keeping it indie and keeping your day job?
For now, yes, I'm still keeping it because what I've learned in the past is that sometimes I've done that several times. Like I would work on a game and the game starts because usually the initial part, the initial days, like the initial weeks, the game sells. It's the part where it sells best. Usually, right? Sometimes you have a long tail, and I was getting some money. I thought, yeah, I can work on this full time. I quit my job. I was working. So I'm not doing that right away. I'm trying to, because I will only do that when I have a clear idea of the next project. Because right now I'm just making ports. It's something that I can do during, because I made the whole most of the game during night, so I can definitely port it during night as well. So I'm only doing that when I have a clear idea, like a concept of everything from start to finish. So until then, I'm keeping it simpler. Yes?
Did your last slide say that your cat died?
Yeah, my cat, yeah, I was making those statistics a bit early. I was finishing the presentation like an hour ago. Yeah, the cat died during New Year's Eve. Like, no, he had the leukemia. So, but if you have, yeah, that was really sad. So if I can show you, I have a slide here, I think. Like the cat was, it's that cat over there. The cat would spend like the whole day. Sometimes the computer was off, and the cat would climb to the table, and it was just staring at the screen, like that, exactly like that. So, and I would turn on the screen. I was coding all the day, and the cat was just looking. I don't even know why he was doing it. But just static stuff like code, because you don't really usually don't have that much movement. He didn't like movies. Like if I put a movie on the screen, but he would spend the day there, so it was really like a companion. Like if you, I worked most of even on my earlier projects when I had other people working. Usually I was working on my home, so alone. So it's really hard to work that much hours, especially on weekends. Like I usually wake up earlier, like naturally, like 8 a.m. So I usually I work during the morning. So it's really a bit lonely, like nobody is around the house or some people are sleeping, so it's a bit lonely. And the cat was always there, so he was like on the table and he was like looking at the code. It's like, anyone here familiar, the rubber duck programming? You know, it's more like cat programming. Like I was working on something, this doesn't work, what do you think? And he was just staring there. And but he had, I found out that he had leukemia and eventually he passed away. So that's one of the things that happened during the, if anyone, yes?
What's your opinion about using native C++ for the development instead of using some middleware that are really popular right now? Do you think it was the best decision? It wasn't? What are your thoughts about that?
That's a really good idea. I get asked that a lot. A lot of tools are very used right now. Like probably the most popular is Unity, I think. When I started making my own engine in 2009. So at that time, no, I started on XNA. I made the first game on XNA. It was on Xbox and PC. When I wanted to make the port to iOS, I had to make a decision like I need to choose something that I can reach more. So I chose C++ and OpenGL. I had a lot of problems initially with the engine because I was doing it alone, but after 4 years, it's pretty stable right now. So I chose this because I know it better than anyone, and when I have a problem, I know what it is. I may not know how to solve it, but I know what it is. So it's easier. Like if I'm working on another people middleware, if it has a bug, it's not common. It's more people working in it, but it was because it's easier to me to work. And actually, for me, it was I think it was a good decision because it's working properly on the Mac, Linux, and I'm making Android right now. The code base is pretty much the same. It doesn't change that much. So yeah, I don't know the other tools that well, so I can't really talk about how much they're better than I'm sure. But for me, it was a good. I think it was.
I noticed you use an art pack,
Yeah.
stock art pack.
Yeah, the game for. But you can finish.
Do you think that made the game more appealing in some way, or did I noticed that that's a constriction for you because you don't do art that much. You're more
Yeah.
focused on the code.
Yeah.
But do you think that made the game more popular somehow? Because people recognize the pack from somewhere else.
Yeah, that was really a problem, but more in the negative way. Because if you don't know, like the art style, most of the sprites are from an art pack that I purchased the rights, but anyone can buy it and use them in his own game. So you just buying the license for using it on a game. So I made that because I didn't have like money to pay an artist. I didn't have that money. So I just made that decision, even knowing that people will probably see the same art style. It was a real. Most people felt like initially. Most people felt like it was a rip-off of another game. I don't really remember the game, but since it was an Android-only game, most people didn't know it. If it was. People liked the art style, but most of them didn't know. I don't think most of them recognized it from other games. A lot of them did, but they felt like, oh, okay, so he doesn't have money, he made the rest of it. But to me, it was a bit restrictive, because sometimes I would want something else. Like the UI, I made the UI myself, and you can clearly see that it's totally different from everything else. So I would do it again because I didn't have any money, but yeah, it's a bit restrictive when you use stock art for a game. It's something that's getting a bit more popular these days because there are good artists just making sprite packs for other games. So I think we'll probably see. I've seen a lot of games using the same art pack since my game came out, and a lot of people say, I get emails like every week of people, oh, this game, check this game, is ripping off your art. Then I send them the link. No, this guy bought the same art pack that I did. Okay. Yes.
You said that you program your game in C++.
Yes.
Which tools did you use to port the game to iOS, Android?
So in iOS, I use Xcode. I just imported all the file.
It's a direct port?
It's a direct port with just a thin layer of Objective-C to access the accelerometer, the touch screen, the rotation. Everything else is direct port. The code works because in Xcode you can compile Objective-C, C, C++. Now you have Swift. So you can build. It's really powerful. You can build in the same file. You don't even have to. It's not really good practice, but if you want to, sometimes you need to mix in a bit of Objective-C with C++. It builds. It's really powerful. In Windows, I used Visual Studio, and Linux, I used the Code Blocks. I think it was Code Blocks. For Android, right now, I'm using Visual Studio as well, with a couple of plugins to make the build to the NDK. It's just because you can. Instead of using the Visual Studio internal builder, I'm using the Google builder. So it's a couple of plugins like that redirect all your make files to another compiler. So it works. You can even debug. It's really cool. I can tell you the name of it.
Just
yes.
Getting back to the whole art pack question that
Yep.
I'm trying with you. Didn't it cause you to feel a little bit disconnected with your game? I mean, sometimes when you borrow assets from someone, you're actually not creating the identity.
Yeah, yeah. I felt that a bit because, I have to construct the game around those arts. Sometimes it's restrictive, like you want to make something that the designer didn't make, you can't do it, or you have to ask someone else. I made something like, I don't think I have it here, like no, I don't have it here. Like if you've seen the game, like the initial splash screen, it has a different, the characters are there in a different art style. So I paid an artist to draw me that characters in from the early, right at the beginning. Like I sent them the pixel characters, and I told him, I want you to draw me this in this art style in this situation because this is the theme I want for the game. So he drew me that, so I had that. Like it felt more close to what I wanted because everything else was someone else's idea. So yeah, it feels a bit disconnected. That's why I also made the game a bit a couple of things were not a bit nonsense because I was just gluing parts. Like the game had a coherent flow, but yeah, that's usually it's restrictive. Yes.
Hobbyist game developers are known for going to game development forums. Did you go, or do you go to any of those for either self-promotion or getting help?
Yeah, I usually some of them I just go like lurking around, like reading everyone else's what everyone else is doing. Some of them I'm a bit more active. I'm usually game dev, but it's usually for programming more. Game dev, I think it's GameDev.com. I think. Touch Arcade, I was there for a bit of time because someone created a thread about the game, so I was sharing screenshots. People really like when you're like close to them, like answering. Even if someone bashes your game, like this sucks. If you go, don't contradict him. But if you go there like trying to help, they really like when a developer is close to them. So I usually try to do it as much as I can. On Steam, like the game has a Steam forum. I usually hang out SDL, but that's more like that's a more middleware platform. And really, just for promotion, I usually use Twitter more. I'm kind of a I'm a Twitter person. It's easy to feel close to the persons that are. People can send you a tweet. They don't even have to follow you, or they can send you something you can answer without even following them. So yeah, that's. I don't know if this answers your question, or if nobody else has any questions or anything. Okay, so thank you for being here. I hope you like it. Thank you.